In this video, we're going to be continuing our conversation of percents, and this is percent word problems in 6th grade on the Khan Academy. So it says an estimated 3 out of every 25 men are left-handed. And if you remember previously, we said that when we are calculating percents, we're going to have the percent times the whole will be equal to the part. And this comes from recognizing that there's a part and a whole. So this is a ratio or a proportion will be equal to the percent out of 100, because a percent is a special fraction that has a denominator of 100. So if it says 3 out of every 25 men are left-handed, we can do this two ways. We can either just say 3 out of 25 is equal to what number out of 100. And this is very easy because I know that to get from 25 to 100, I just do times 4. So then 3 times 4 is 12. So it's going to be 12 men out of 100. Now, if you don't prefer that method and you were instead going to use the equation method, you could do the same thing. I know that my whole is 25 and that my part is 3 and that I don't know my percent. And so when I'm missing part of a multiplication problem, I divide. So I take 3 divided by 25, and that's going to give me 0.12. And then when I multiply, that gives me 12 hundredths, because this is the hundredths place, which is 12%. Next, it says Darius buys a bottle of a chemical solution that contains 70% alcohol. The bottle contains 500 milliliters of solution. Again, we'll do the equation method first. I've got my percent times the whole is equal to the part. And it says that it's 70% alcohol, so I've got 0.7. And then it says the bottle contains 500 milliliters of solution, and that's just the solution. So that's the whole, so that's going to be 500. And it says how many milliliters are alcohol. So we're just looking for the alcohol, not the whole thing. 0.7 times 500 is going to be equal to what? And so the way I like to think about this is I know that 10% or 0.1 of 500 will be 50 by dividing by 10. And I take that times 7. So just using mental math, I know that the answer is 350. I'll prove it to you with the calculator. 0.7 times 500 is 350. We can also use the other method, which is the ratio method. And so if I have 70%, the special fraction with a denominator of 100, and I have 500 as my denominator here, you'll see that to get from 100 to 500 is times 5. So I do the same thing. 70 times 5 is 35 with a 0 on the end. So I get 350, and that is my answer. 350 milliliters of alcohol. In the next problem, it says a zoo has 15 emperor penguins. The emperor penguins make up 30% of the penguins at the zoo. So again, I have my percent times the whole is equal to my part. And it will be helpful if you're doing this with a piece of paper. So it says at the zoo has 15 emperor penguins. So that's not all of the penguins, it's just part of them. So that's going to be 15 here, equals the whole, which I don't know. And I know that my percent is 30, 0.3. So now, since I'm missing part of my multiplication problem, I divide. So I take my answer, 15, and I divide by 0.3, which is going to give me, that's going to probably be 150 divided by 3, which will be 50 is what my guess is. Let's check and see if I'm right. 15 divided by 0.3 and my answer is 50. And so if I were to do the other method, I would have 30% will be equal to 15. And 15 is my part, so it goes on top, over what number? And I know here that this is times 2. My arrow is going to the left, so if I'm going the other direction, I divide by 2. 100 divided by 2 is 50. So my answer is 50 total penguins. The last problem I'm going to do, it says, of the 50 U.S. states, 4 have names that start with the letter W. What percentage start with W? So again, if I have my percent times my whole is going to be equal to my part. And so remember, a percent is just a part over a whole, so you could just divide it. It'd be 4 divided by 50. But we have my percent. I know my whole is 50, and that's going to be equal to 4. So we end up taking 4 divided by 50, and that's going to be equal to 8%, or 0.08. The other way I can do it is that I can do my ratio method, and I have 4 out of 50, that's my part and my whole, is going to be what percent with a denominator of 100, because a percent is a fancy fraction with a denominator of 100. If I go from 50 to 100, that's times 2. So I need to do 4 times 2, and I get 8%. And this fraction turns into 8%.